Hey, what's going on, guys? Back home actually for a short window. Got to get back on the road. The travel out of Tampa was really interesting. So I already kind of shared with you what it took to get to Miami. Then when I got to Miami, flight cancellations. I even was at the airport. I booked 2 different flights at 2 different airlines because I didn't trust that any one was going to work. As I'm standing there looking at the screen where it's talking about the flights, there was only 3 flights on the entire screen that were still going. Everything else was canceled. So it was a little bit freaky getting out of there. And what was really, really cool is I was standing there waiting to get on the plane. It was running late because the incoming flight was a little late because they said the turbulence coming in. In fact, somebody was so turbulent, stood up during the turbulence, fell over, broke their arm, and somebody else got hurt. And I found it interesting, the comment they made, because they said, when we take off, the first 40 minutes of flight, stay seated, stay seat belted. And they commented, the bigger you are, the more damage you do. So I thought that was really interesting, alluding to maybe the individual walking around wasn't the smallest person. So we get in the air and no turbulence. I was kind of looking forward to a non-boring flight and nothing. So kind of sucked for me. I'm sure everybody else had a sigh of relief as we took off out of there, got to Atlanta, got home, spent a couple of days here, having to get back out. But interesting thing all about this hurricane, you start looking at the damage that has happened. There's an extensive amount. So a thought that I have for you is some of you are in contract right now, and some of you are debating, do you stay in contract? Because you're looking at your cash on cash return and getting really, really caught up in this cash on cash return and what it looks like on that first year. None of them are looking that great the first year. They're not looking that great second or third year. Look at 4, 5, and 6. Start seeing what that is. We've talked about that several times. Start mapping out what the rent raises look like in that area. Let's think about what we're going into here. We already had a supply chain issue. We already had a housing issue. We already had slow construction, not as many permits being pulled, not as much material or workers to build these houses. Now we have an enormous amount of damage out in an area that's probably one of the fastest areas for growth as far as new construction in the US that I can tell. Now, I could be a little off on that, but it's one of the faster ones. And now we had a lot of damage done to a lot of those areas that had a lot of construction going on. Where do you think the supply chain is going to go now? They're going to be a lot pointed back into just rebuilding what was already there. What's that going to do for new construction somewhere else? Think about this and think what's going to happen to our inventories. If you're debating on a contract right now just because of a low cash on cash return, I think you need to reconsider what you're doing, right? You've got that rent raises, you've got the amortization of the loan. Even if you don't make a single dollar of cash flow on that house, and all it does is pay for the mortgage, and that's it. You don't bring another dollar in, but you don't put another dollar out. Do the math on that. If that's an 80% loan, divide that by 30, because that's how many years it's going to take your tenant to pay that off. Take that dollar amount. Let's say it's 100,000. Divide by 30. It's $2,666.67. You take that and calculate that into the down payment and closing cost. Let's say in that scenario, it's 26 grand. That's a 10.25% year-over-year increase in your initial investment. Your initial investment grew by 10.25% of the initial investment every single year. That's not a loss. That doesn't, and then we're not even talking about tax benefits. We're not talking about appreciation, and we didn't talk about the cash flow. That's just you amortizing the loan. So if you're debating, you may want to debate a little bit differently. So we had the PCE numbers come out. They didn't look the way that everybody wanted them to. There's a lot of news out there for people a little bit disappointed. They thought, well, now the Fed's going to have more reason to continue to keep raising. You know, in a higher level view, they believe the Fed's going to keep pushing on rate raises because of inflation, instead of allowing you to kind of stop and settle in some of these rate increases to see if it does any real major movement. They're doing it month over month. So when you think about that, those moves, and it's not given a lot of time to settle, we may see a lot more impact in inflation down the path and how that impacts the economy rather than taking it a little bit slower. That's at least some of the thought processes. You know, inflation's like a loaded oil tanker, right? It doesn't stop real easy. You got to start slowing that thing down way in advance. So to keep putting measures in constantly, expecting it to make some sort of difference is not going to work so well. At least that's what some economists are claiming. I don't know how that's all going to work out. We're just watching how the market's reacting. It's not reacting awesome. It's actually kind of reacting fairly negative right now. In fact, let's kind of show you the charts and what we're experiencing out there, because it's been a little rough at least last few days. So I'm wanting to have people, you know, get an understanding of what we're looking at and what we're up against here. So here is mortgage-backed securities. It has been on a downward trend. This channel is holding us pretty tight. As you can see, we're getting up in here. We're going down to the bottom. Problem of it is it's such a steep one. We're not getting a major movement upward when it does go up. So we've almost got to the top of it a couple of days ago, took a bit of a beating yesterday. Today, we're hitting the top of that channel. I'm hoping we can break out and go sideways. I don't know how long that's going to take. It might take a bit to get out of there. So this is what we're seeing. This is going to continue to keep, from what I can tell, rates going up. So if you're expecting rates to get better at any time in the near future, I'm not 100% convinced that they will. Not with everything that's happening. There's a lot of talk that it could in the future, but right now I'm not seeing it. Look at this. This is going to keep driving us into deeper and deeper territory. As far as I'm concerned, if you got something in contract, look at it correctly, understand what you're getting into, understand what could be happening down the path with the market and the housing, and that you could actually do very, very well if you continue to stay on course. And if you're having a hard time hanging this because it just feels, just really scary, put a helmet on, man, and get your blue pills, because a good screwing might be coming. You want to be on the right side of that. So if you have anything you have questions about, give me a call, shoot me an email, schedule some time to talk. We'll go through this in greater detail. I just want to be sure you guys are armed with as much as I can give you, so you're making better decisions about your business. We'll talk to you on Tuesday.